This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Peacemaker in chief, good afternoon. Welcome to the broadcast. With a meaty ceasefire still holding, President Trump turns his attention to Eastern Europe today as he hosts peace talks at the White House next hour with Ukraine's leader, Volodymyr Zelensky.
We want to get peace. We want to stop the killing.
The world leaders will try and find ways to wind down the war between Russia and Ukraine.
The two are expected to discuss the president's lengthy phone call yesterday with Russian leader Vladimir Putin.
I thought it was a very good phone call. I thought very productive.
Afterwards, President Trump announced that he and Putin will hold a summit in Budapest, like the one the two had in Alaska back in August.
Correspondent Naomi Ruckham says today's talks at the White House will center on U.S. shipments of Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine to protect that country from Russian drone and rocket attacks. The president is sending a stern warning to Hamas terrorists amid that fragile ceasefire with Israel in the Middle East. Here's reporter Jared Halpern.
If Hamas continues killing Palestinians in Gaza, President Trump says we will have no choice but to go in and kill them. The social media post follows warnings from the president for Hamas to disarm or be disarmed quickly and perhaps violently.
Israel accuses Hamas of delaying the return of deceased hostages. Hamas claims the bodies of the remaining victims are buried in the rubble. Former National Security Advisor John Bolton surrenders today to authorities in Maryland after being indicted on 18 felony charges. He's accused of mishandling classified information. Legal analyst Laura Jarrett.
This is about highly classified materials, which he knowingly, apparently distributed to his family members, according to prosecutors. He's going to have a tough road to fight this. He says he did nothing wrong, but you see prosecutors already building their case using his own public media statements against him, showing he should have known better.
Kristen Welker hosts the NBC Meet the Press program.
President Trump has long railed against John Bolton, accusing him of criminal activity, even calling some of his actions treasonous.
Authorities say Bolton shared over 1,000 pages of classified documents with his family. He faces a decade behind bars for each of the charges. Bolton maintains his innocence and says he is the latest victim in Mr. Trump's attempts to weaponize the Justice Department. It's day 17 of the government shutdown, and the impasse will continue into next week as there are no more votes scheduled in Congress until Monday. Meantime, the heated rhetoric continues on Capitol Hill.
We will sit down anytime, any place with anyone to find a bipartisan path forward.
Let's pass our clean bill and get back to work for the American people who sent us here.
TSA agents and air traffic controllers are not getting paid during the impasse, so Bill Wyatt at the Salt Lake City International Airport has stepped in. He's opened up a food pantry right inside the airport.
Kind of a range of household items that are available to all of those workers to come and take whatever it is they may need. We will be including gas cards, gift cards.
An estimated 500 workers at that airport could benefit from the aid. The public's encouraged to visit the airport's travel plaza and contribute. Thanksgiving is still over a month away, but experts are already warning holiday travel this year could set records again.
Thanksgiving 2024 was the busiest Thanksgiving ever at the nation's airports, records that may be shattered again this year. Holiday trips booked between June 30th and October 8th are up 2.2% for Thanksgiving and nearly 1% for Christmas week.
Aviation consultant Chris Van Cleve. And did you know dolphins can exhibit signs of Alzheimer's disease? A new study out shows the brains of 20 bottlenose dolphins that washed ashore in Florida had high concentrations of a deadly chemical called cyanobacteria. That chemical is scarring the brains of dolphins in a way that's similar to humans who have Alzheimer's. Still to come on the Noon Report. For a Friday, a major ruling on how elections are done. Update on the drought conditions, and high school sports could be changing in New York. We'll tell you how after this.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. The weekend is upon us, and it's going to be turning warmer. There will be some rain, but it's not a washout. Forecast details are coming up.
All right, Kevin, news flash. Both New York and Pennsylvania need a lot of rain. Spectrum News meteorologist Chris Gilson says the drought in New York is the worst it's been in nearly a decade.
98% of the state is in dry or drought conditions, and this is the worst the drought has been for the entire state since about 2016. You have to go back to November 1st, 2016, the last time that the drought has been this widespread across the state.
So what's it going to take to dent the drought?
It's going to take a lot of rain. We've seen the deficits really grow since July. It would take around Rochester nearly 7+ inches of rain, but we haven't seen a lot so far for the month of October. It does look like as we head into next week that the pattern could become a little bit more active and that we could see a wetter than average pattern across most of New York.
Pennsylvania, meantime, is experiencing its third worst drought since 1895. More than 3 million residents of the Keystone State are dealing with the lack of water. 34% of the landmass of Pennsylvania is covered by a drought. The worst off areas include Warren and McKean counties in the northern tier. The village of Fredonia in western New York also reeling from a lack of rain. Local leaders there warn if things don't change soon, they may not be able to ensure an adequate supply of drinking water.
Part of it is, this is what happens when you have dependency on a reservoir. Reservoirs are very tricky, and our reservoir is 140 years old.
If conditions don't improve, if we don't see significant rainfall in the near future, we will find ourselves like other communities that are worse off than we are.
Like the community of Ripley, New York, in the far reaches of Chautauqua County. It's under a state of emergency due to water woes.
All customers, residential and commercial, must take steps to reduce water usage. These restrictions will remain in place until further notice and can be enforced by the town now that the state of emergency has been declared.
The village of Fredonia is also calling on its residents to conserve as much as they can wherever they can.
A drop or an inch accounts for thousands of gallons of water. Every drop makes a difference as to where you're at. You can be up an inch or two one day and down 4 inches within 24 hours.
Big news when it comes to high school sports. The New York State Public High School Athletic Association says it will reevaluate the participation of private schools in sectional and state championship play. Up until now, private school participation has been a decision left to the individual sections to determine. There are 11 of them in New York. An important meeting next Tuesday will determine how private schools should be classified in sectional play and state tournament competitions. New York's highest court has upheld the constitutionality of a new state law that moves most local elections to even-numbered years. It's a win for Democrats, but a defeat for Republicans who argued this law erodes the power of local governments. Oneida County Executive Ryan McMahon.
This is all an experiment from New York City politicians who want to try to exert their influence over upstate political races.
But Ben Weinberg with Citizens Union calls the ruling a victory for democracy. It boosts turnout in local elections and gives municipal issues more visibility.
More people are thinking about politics, more people are engaged, and more people are asking, what's on my ballot?
Stephen Aquario is executive director of the New York State Association of Counties.
It's a baffling decision, but it shows us in New York State that the state legislature is the primary sovereign government which can regulate all local governments in New York State.
State Democrats voted a couple years ago to switch most town and county races to even-numbered years when contests for Congress, governor, or president are also on the ballot. The change excludes races for sheriff, DA, or local judges. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman is criticizing his own party over the government shutdown.
I follow
country than party, and it's the wrong thing for the country in a period of chaos. I refuse to vote to shut our government down.
He says discussions on health care subsidies can happen after the government reopens. Fetterman is one of just 3 Senate Democrats to vote with Republicans to reopen the federal government. A federal appeals court this week upheld New York's controversial gun safety law that requires background checks for ammunition sales. The ruling by the Second Circuit Court of Appeals affirms a lower court decision that denied a challenge to New York's Concealed Carry Improvement Act. Fight night in New York. The candidates for mayor of New York City duked it out in a televised debate last night. Democrat Zohran Mamdani faced off against independent candidate Andrew Cuomo and Republican challenger Curtis Sliwa. Here's Fox's Madeline Rivera.
They took on several issues from the war in Gaza to public safety to housing costs, but the fireworks between Cuomo and Mamdani dominated the evening as Cuomo tries to chip away at Mamdani's lead.
Cuomo accused Mamdani of being soft on crime.
He doesn't like the police. That's why he won't hire more police when everyone else says we need more police. He wants to use social workers on domestic violence calls, which are very dangerous. He's told you what he thinks. He thinks the police are racist, wicked, corrupt, and a threat to public safety.
Thank you.
Those are his words.
Current New York City Mayor Eric Adams abandoned his reelection bid last month. He's yet to endorse a candidate in the November 4th contest. Health scare at a Western Pennsylvania elementary school. The Albert Gallatin Area School District in Fayette County says shaved ice served during a Halloween-themed event may have been contaminated with insulin and broken glass. The incident happened Wednesday at the A.L. Wilson Elementary School. Police say it's still unclear how that shaved ice could have become contaminated. A Western Pennsylvania healthcare system has just inked a deal to join forces with one of the region's largest healthcare systems. Here's Family Life's Brian Query.
Allegheny Health Network and Heritage Valley Health System have signed an affiliation agreement that would bring Heritage Valley's Sewickley and Brighton hospitals under the AHN banner. The deal still needs government approval, but officials say it will expand Allegheny Health Network to 16 hospitals and strengthen care across Allegheny and Beaver counties. Heritage Valley has faced recent financial struggles, including closing its Kennedy Hospital and reporting $56 million in losses last year. Both organizations say the agreement will secure Heritage Valley's future and lead to significant new investments over the next decade. Brian Query, Family Life News.
The Finger Lakes region has just been named the 2025 American Wine Region of the Year. It was voted on by subscribers to Wine Enthusiast magazine. That area of central New York's home to more than 140 wineries spread out across 11 of the Finger Lakes. Governor Hochul says this designation is a testament to the talent and the passion of New York's winemakers. Sports next. We call it the 2-minute drill right here on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon. I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, we have a series in one playoff and not so much of one in the National League. The Dodgers most likely are going to the World Series. Now, it's not a done deal yet, but that final nail on Milwaukee's coffin is halfway down after LA's 3-1 win last night. The Dodgers breaking a 1-1 tie with 2 runs in the 6th inning. They are now up 3-0. But in the American League, things are all knotted up at 2 after Toronto's ageless wonder, Max Scherzer, went 5 2/3 innings, gave up 2 runs, and he helped the Jays to an 8-2 victory. The Blue Jays' bats were alive and well. Andres Jimenez hit another 2-run home run to start Toronto's offense for the 2nd straight game. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hit his 5th long ball this postseason, as the Blue Jays seem to have all the momentum right now. By the way, the game tonight in Seattle, and no home team has won yet in this series. They played some football last night in Cincinnati, and Joe Flacco threw for 342 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. So the quote-unquote young 40-year-old Flacco outdueled his 41-year-old counterpart Aaron Rodgers, leading the Bengals to a thrilling 33-31 victory. Rodgers, he was good. He threw 4 touchdown passes, but he was picked off twice. On the ice, Austin Matthews lit the lamp 58 seconds into overtime, and Toronto edged the Rangers 2-1. The Islanders got a hat trick from Bo Horvat to lead the New Yorkers to their first win of the season, 4-2 over the Oilers. Penguins came back from a 2-goal deficit. They took down the Kings in LA 4-2. Flyers fell to Winnipeg 5-2. That is a look at sports.
Thank you, Randy. Men, still to come on the Noon Report. Why sports betting is so dangerous. The public safety risk posed by marijuana. And what's at stake on Election Day, November 4th. Coming up fast, we'll have the Capital Connection crew weigh in after this.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. The Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. Late last month, the Department of Justice's Religious Liberty Commission heard testimony from experts and teachers about the importance of overlapping religion and education. Among those voices was Dr. Hutz Hertzberg, the Chief Education Officer of Turning Point USA's education arm. Hertzberg argued that the public education system could no longer be trusted to train children in truth and in morals. He also highlighted the importance of teaching children these things from the absolute authority of Scripture. His comments highlight an essential but often unasked question about education. What is the goal of education? The answer depends on what is true about reality and the human person, because education is never neutral. Every curriculum, lesson, teacher, and student enters the classroom shaped by underlying assumptions about who they are, what's true, what's good, what's real, and whether life has purpose. The essential task of Christian educators, then, is to guide students toward the true, ultimate goal of students becoming true worshipers of God, who recognize all of reality and truth as belonging to God, and who respond by loving Him with all they are, according to all that He has revealed. Therefore, Christian education has to become far more than just academic excellence in a Christian environment, like so many schools claim. It's about forming students who know and love truth, who can live faithfully in a fragmented and disorienting cultural moment, are confident in who God has created them to be, and who see their lives as lived in His presence for His purposes. That framework of truth, hope, identity, and calling, that's the substance of a truly Christian education. In the very best of cases, a secular vision of education only offers students false and ungrounded optimism in human progress. In most cases, untethered from God's story, history appears random, the future uncertain, life disconnected from any greater purpose. In the end, students are catechized in a truncated vision of life in the world, and especially of themselves. Within secular approaches to education, truth is constructed and ultimately fragmented. Every discipline stands alone, leaving students the burden of assembling meaning for themselves. In this fractured view of knowledge, truth is relative, identity is fluid, and meaning is privatized. But the Christian vision of reality is unified, and it is coherent. The truths of reality reflect the truth about everything. Math reflects God's precision. Science, His consistency. Literature explores human longing that point us beyond the temporal to the eternal. Because all truth reflects God's grand story of creation, fall, redemption, and restoration, education itself is the pursuit of what's true, and it points us to Christ, in whom all things in heaven and earth hold together. A brand new Educator's Edition of Truth Rising the Study serves this vision. Access Truth Rising the Study Educator's Edition and the full course library by visiting colsoneducators.org. That's colsoneducators.org. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
All right, John, thank you. Let's head outside. Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life weather forecast. The call for this afternoon, sunny to partly cloudy. A stray shower in parts of western New York. High temperatures near 60. Tonight, some clouds, perhaps a shower here and there. Low temps, mid-30s to mid-40s, not as chilly as recent nights. Tomorrow, clouds, partial sun. There could be a morning shower in central New York. Warmer, high temps tomorrow, 60s and low 70s. Sunday, early sun and cloudy. Rain moves in later in the day and at night from west to east. High temperature Sunday, mid-60s to mid-70s.
All right, thank you, Kevin. It's Friday, folks, the 17th of October, and you're listening to The Noon Report on Family Life. This is Capital Connection. Fridays during the Noon Report, we give you, the listener, direct connection to all that's happening in Albany and Harrisburg with the experts on the issues at the state capitals. They are, as always, Michael Geer at the Pennsylvania Family Institute and Jason McGuire with New York Families. Well, here we are, guys, just about 2.5 weeks to go until Election Day. And in Pennsylvania, Michael, it's all about the retention election. We're talking about those 3 state Supreme Court justices on the ballot November 4th. What is at stake here, and why does it matter so much?
Yeah, these retention elections have been making a lot of news. These 3 justices, Democrats Christine Donahue, David Wecht, and Kevin Dougherty, are all seeking new 10-year terms on the court. And for voters, a yes vote gives these justices another term. A no vote ends their tenure. Now, these justices have been involved in some very controversial decisions from the bench. For example, the COVID shutdowns, gerrymandering, and supporters of keeping these justices have been running campaign ads for them in support of abortion. Those are just some of the weighty issues that come before the court and that impact the future of Pennsylvania families.
All right, there's a big voter guide you got hot off the presses, and we'll give the web address at the end, Michael, where folks can go and get that. But in New York State, it's all about that New York City mayoral contest. We saw again this week Governor Hochul hitch her wagon to Zohran Mamdani, the self-avowed socialist. I've often wondered this. You know, many people look at New York City as the seat of capitalism in America. How does a man with a message like his, government run everything, poll so well, even in far-left New York City?
Well, I think you're seeing a pendulum swinging in the left and the right. Right now, I think you've seen the rise of President Trump, who's a populist president on the right, and I think you're seeing candidates that tend to be more populist on the left. In this case, it's a socialist, but he's speaking the message that many people are hearing about affordability, student loan debt, and how difficult that issue is. Young people are having a hard time buying houses today, and that message is resonating with many voters in the downstate area. They care a little about the socialism, but they are resonating with the populist message that he is bringing.
The polls now today show that both former Governor Cuomo and Curtis Lee are way behind. Can any of them make this interesting in the closing weeks of this campaign?
Well, if the polls are wrong, then it could be an interesting race. It's really hard to tell where those polls will actually be. Some of the voting demographics are hard to poll these days. I expect a tighter race than polls are showing, but it's difficult to see overcoming a 20-some point lead by Zohran Mamdani over his challengers.
Well, Michael, there was a poll done by Wright State University in Ohio recently that caught my attention. I thought it was a major story. It showed that marijuana plays a role in 40% of all fatal car crashes. 4 out of every 10 involves marijuana use, a drug that is now legal in half of the states in this country. You're fighting to make sure that Pennsylvania doesn't join that bandwagon. What was your reaction to that study, and how are things going in Pennsylvania to keep marijuana from becoming legal?
Well, that study was very interesting because it did show that impaired driving was from recent marijuana use. It was not just lingering marijuana in the blood. That study and so many other studies that show impaired driving, youth substance abuse and addiction, cannabis use disorder, increased risk of mental illness and psychosis, they're all providing us with really good arguments, sadly, but good arguments on why legalization of commercial sale of marijuana is wrong for Pennsylvania. So right now we're hopeful we can make it through this extended budget season dodging the legalization bullet, and then the weight of these bad effects of marijuana use hopefully will prevent its expansion here in Pennsylvania in the future.
Well, Jason, New York's Attorney General Tish James was in the news for all the wrong reasons. She's going to be arraigned next week on criminal charges in Alexandria, Virginia. And this is serious stuff. She could face prison time, even loss of her law license if convicted. She's claiming this is a weaponization of the Justice Department. What's your reaction to what's happening happening right now with New York's top prosecutor, Attorney General Tish James?
Well, I think we should remember that she does have the presumption of innocence, and that is how our judicial system works, and we recognize that. But the irony of the moment is not lost. You have an attorney general who has gone after her political enemies, really, and targeted them. She ran her entire campaign on how she would go after the Trump administration should President Trump win that election, and he did, and she has gone after him. And so now you're seeing that come full circle, and she's being bit by that. It's really become kind of a Rorschach test. You see those on the right that are praising it, those on the left that are denouncing it, and I think it says a lot about the political moment we're in, and that there's some tit-for-tat politics going on.
Yeah. Well, gambling is an issue we discuss a lot on this program, and I mention it, Michael, because this is the time of year, fall, autumn, great time of year for sports fans. You got football season full swing now. You got the postseason baseball going on. Unfortunately, though, there's a lot of sports betting that goes along with that. How big of a problem is this in Pennsylvania, and what has been the net effect of legalized sports betting in the Commonwealth?
Well, just listen to these statistics. In 2024, Pennsylvanians wagered over $8.4 billion, that's billion with a B, on legal sports betting here in the Commonwealth. And that resulted in losses totaling more than $500 million in those wages. So the online sports betting companies like DraftKings and FanDuel are making out like the bandits that they are, and those lost dollars often are missed mortgage payments or rent payments. But even more troubling, Bob, is the number of young people ensnared by the lure of sports gambling. The reports indicate that 3 out of 4 college students have gambled in the past year, with most of that from sports betting. And get this, individuals who gamble under the age of 21 are 4 times more likely to develop gambling problems later in life.
Wow. Hey, it's those young men that a lot of people are focused on. You read the fine print. If you have a gambling problem, call this number. It's like you can't even read it. You need a microscope to see it. No. But Jason, it's so ingrained in our culture now. I was just joking with my wife. We're watching the Sunday football, and you can't even watch the pregame coverage without seeing the odds makers at work. It's part of the whole sports scene now. What is the allure in sports betting in particular, and why is it so dangerous?
Well, I think it's like a lot of other vices that people find on their mobile devices these days, is there's an addictive nature to it because it is so available. There's an anonymity to it, and there's a dopamine effect. And so it's dangerous because you have particularly young men that are spending these funds, that are becoming addicted now to gambling. That's only going to escalate. And you do see situations where people are gambling away their mortgage money, their grocery budgets, and things such as that. But it often begins at that younger age in college. It's not going away. It's becoming a greater and greater part of our culture, and that should be concerning for all of us.
Yeah. Parental rights in education is another big topic. Mike, I remember when I ran for school board in the district that I live in, I supported age-appropriate learning standards, and all of a sudden I was called a Nazi who wanted to burn books. Where do pro-family forces get this false reputation that because they believe a kindergartner shouldn't be learning about transgender ideology, that somehow that's akin to Gestapo-like book-burning tactics?
Yeah, I'm going to just say it simply bluntly, that there are groups like the Teachers Union and many other leftist organizations in this country that think that they should rule and reign over children rather than parents having the choice about how their children are going to be educated and what they're exposed to. And so based on the power that these teachers unions, well-funded organizations have, they have a propaganda arm that then says anybody who thinks there should be age-appropriate standards in children, let's say in kindergarten or preschool or even in elementary school, should not be exposed to sexually explicit materials, that somehow that's banning books. We know better. Parents know better. We provide those resources to help parents make the right choices for their children.
And then finally, Jason, we would be remiss not to bring up the historicity of what we witnessed in the Middle East this week. Of course, winning the war and winning the peace are two different things entirely. There's a long way to go here, but are you optimistic that for the first time in a long time, we may be achieving a lasting peace in the Middle East?
I'm not so sure that I am as optimistic as others are. I think we're beginning to see that already. Is there good things that have occurred here? Yes, there is. But unfortunately, there has been war in that region among those peoples for literally thousands of years. And we know that true and lasting peace will not come without the return of King Jesus, the Prince of Peace. And so while we want to work for peace, we pray for the peace of Jerusalem, ultimately we know that the greatest need is spiritual, not political. And I think that any peace in the Middle East will be short-term in light of understanding where we are ultimately headed. heading as a world.
All right. That'll have to be the last word this week. The fastest 10 minutes in radio. It goes by fast. If you have any questions about any of the issues discussed today, or you simply want to know, what is New York Families anyway? Why do you exist? Jason, you've got a wonderful website where folks can go. What is that, if you would, sir?
NewYorkFamilies.org.
And stay informed on all the issues in Pennsylvania. Get your hands on that new voter guide at the PA Family Institute. Michael, where can folks find you?
PAFamily.org.
Capital Connection, the name of the program, comes your way every Friday during the Noon Report or online anytime at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or FamilyLife.org.
A very good afternoon to all. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. Well, on the midday weather map, we're still watching the area of high pressure that has brought the recent spell of cool, dry, bright weather. It's moving east, though, and away from us. An approaching warm front will arrive. It's going to do a couple things. It'll bring a shower to some areas to start the weekend. Warmer weather as the weekend wears on. And then a corresponding cold front's arrival will mean widespread rains to end the weekend. The call for this afternoon, sunny to partly cloudy. A stray shower in parts of western New York. High temperatures near 60. Tonight, some clouds. Perhaps a shower here and there. Low temps, mid-30s to mid-40s. Not as chilly as recent nights. Tomorrow, clouds, partial sun. There could be a morning shower in central New York. Warmer, high temps tomorrow, 60s and low 70s. Sunday, early sun, then cloudy. Rain moves in later in the day and at night from west to east. High temperatures Sunday, mid-60s to mid-70s.
All right, sounds like summer. Thank you very much, Kevin. And then finally, a report which begins with this question. Why did the turkey cross the road?
It was trying to get to the other side of the road, of course, but unfortunately didn't make it. A Minnesota man says his uncle
saw some roadkill on the side of the road. There was a fully formed egg inside.
He had an incubator and decided to try it.
Went to bed, and the next morning, sure enough, he was fully out.
They called her Tiny the turkey, and Tiny quickly became part of the family.
She follows us around.
But now Tiny's not so tiny anymore, so they brought her to a bigger property so she can roam free with other wild turkeys.
What are the odds that she survived and hatched out of this turkey that got hit on the side of the road?
That report from correspondent Stacy Lynn. What a great story. And that's our world, the world we live in. Friday, October 17th. Have a wonderful weekend. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.